this is Sam Weigel with V1 Rotate, and this week we're talking about how to incorporate professionalism into your personal flying and training long before you seek employment as a professional pilot.
A major pilot shortage, endless opportunities across the industry, thousands of future professional pilots signing up for flight training. Sounds familiar, right? The year was 1999. It was my first year at the University of North Dakota and the aviation campus was buzzing. All anyone could talk about was who was hiring, who had been hired, what the new low competitive minimums were. Everyone was eager to finish their training and get on with their career. I know I was.
Well, we all know what happened next. The decade-long industry slump that followed was a drawn-out version of what you just experienced in very concentrated form during the pandemic. Some of my friends quit flying. The rest of us had plenty of time to hone our skills, climb the ladder, and dream of the day we finally made it.
Now I look back on those days with a certain fondness, but I certainly wouldn't want to repeat them. And I wouldn't wish them upon those of you starting your career today. I don't foresee an interruption of the current pilot shortage anyways, and I think there will be a ton of opportunities going forward. Still, my early career experience taught me that this is an unpredictable industry. You have to be ready for whatever happens. And a big part of that is making yourself as attractive as possible to potential employers. This starts from the very moment that you begin flight training. No matter how inexperienced you are or how humble of an aircraft you fly, it's never too early to start building a solid foundation as a professional pilot.
Let's be clear about one thing. Incorporating professionalism into your training and flying is possible no matter where you train. There's this perception that Part 141 training produces more professional pilots. That's only indirectly true. Part 141 is meant to mimic the rigidity of airline training, and the big programs are expressly designed to crank out airline pilots. Well, not everyone wants to be an airline pilot. Not everyone can afford to attend those programs. For some people, it makes the most sense to train under Part 61 at a mom-and-pop FBO. You shouldn't be in the least ashamed of that. It in no way diminishes your potential to become a really good pro pilot. In fact, in some ways, it gives you a leg up. Here's the thing about airline training. Most of these programs do not spoon feed you. At a lot of companies, mine included, it's very much pilot, train thyself. Unlike Part 141 training, there's not enough time built into the curriculum for peer teaching. You really have to get a good grasp of the material on your own time, show up for training well prepared, and then learn quickly from your mistakes. That's so much easier if you've established strong training habits early on in your career. You do have one big advantage over airline training right now, and that's the ability to pick your instructor. Later in your career, you're going to run into the occasional instructor who's a poor communicator or an egomaniac or doesn't know the material very well, and you're going to have to cooperate and graduate. You do not have to do that right now. Lord knows you're paying enough for your training. Demand a good instructor that you mesh with well, and if they don't give you one, take your business elsewhere. Another big part of being a professional pilot is really knowing your aircraft, no matter what you fly. I'm going to be honest here. A lot of airline training has been pretty dumbed down to where you're only really tested on limitations and memory items. You certainly should know those things, but your knowledge shouldn't end there. When flying with someone or when interviewing them, it quickly becomes obvious who's learned the bare minimum and who's learned and retained a deeper knowledge level of their aircraft. So, put in the extra time and effort to really get to know every airplane you fly. Study the POH front to back. If it's pretty thin, sometimes older POHs have more information, or you can get a hold of a service manual. Talk to the people who maintain the aircraft and the pilots who have a lot of time in them. Make flashcards to test your knowledge. Chair fly emergency procedures regularly. One area that Part 141 programs tend to do a better job than the smaller flight schools is in training students in the usage of flow patterns and checklists. Mind you, most every instructor will make you use a checklist, but a lot treat it as a read and do list where you read every item and accomplish it in turn. Brakes, set, carburetor heat, cold, throttle, open 1/4 inch, mixture, rich, prime if required, master switch, on, beacon, on. Electrical fuel pump, on. 5 seconds. Check fuel pressure, electric fuel pump off. Propeller, clear area. But that's not how most commercial operators use checklists. In advanced aircraft, doing so would be excruciatingly slow. Most commercial operators instead have their pilots accomplish most procedures via the use of flow patterns, methodical, memorized means of moving around the cockpit and actuating switches to the desired position. The most critical checks and switch positions are then reconfirmed via the checklist in a read and verify manner.
Complete. Check the breakers. Check. Now display switches.
Normal nano.
Passenger side. On. Window heat. On. Indicator switches. On. Purchase panel.
Set.
Flow patterns can be used in light aircraft too. This is the PA-28 before start flow. It uses 2 sweeps of the lower panel to accomplish most before start items. Then you read the engine start checklist to verify that each item has been accomplished, and then proceed with the engine start.
Carburetor heat, cold, mixture rich, throttle open 1/4 inch, prime as required, master switch and beacon, on and on, electric fuel pump on 5 seconds, fuel pressure check indication, electric fuel pump off. Propeller, clear.
If you're not already doing so, get into the habit of using flow patterns in your own flying and using checklists in a read and verify manner. As you move up to faster, more complex, busier aircraft, you'll find it makes configuration chores go quicker and smoother, freeing up a lot of time and brain power for the actual flying of the airplane.
There's another major part of professional flying that you should incorporate into your early training and time building: the use of standard operating procedures, or SOPs. Of course, every student pilot learns the basics of Part 91 and how to operate within its bounds, but in most commercial operators, simply staying within the bounds of the regulations is not enough. Each company has a set of operating specifications, or op specs, as well as SOPs contained within their flight operations manual and aircraft operations manuals that are approved by the FAA and actually carry the full force of regulations. Many SOPs are more restrictive than Part 135 or 121, and other times they contain guidance on subjects about which the regulations are silent. Most Part 141 schools develop their own set of SOPs that they expect students to abide by. These aren't just to keep you safe, they're to get you used to operating within the bounds of SOPs. If your school doesn't have them, I'd encourage you to develop your own SOPs and strictly abide by them. I think this is actually a better exercise in aeronautical decision making than just following rules handed down from above. Your SOPs can and should change as you gain experience, but once set, you should follow them religiously. One example of a common private pilot SOP is to set minimum VFR ceiling and visibility numbers above those in the regulations, and to stipulate a mandatory divert procedure if weather deteriorates below SOP minimums.
Another is to establish stabilized approach criteria. Specify a gate. 200 feet works well for many light aircraft, at which you must be stabilized on glide path and centerline within 5 knots of your target airspeed with normal approach power. If not, mandatory go-around. It's exactly how we do it in transport category aircraft, and it's a good habit to be in long before you fly one.
My last suggestion is to get into a habit that's so ingrained in most longtime professional pilots that we seldom even consciously think about doing it. And that's the practice of debriefing yourself after every flight. Think about what you goofed up, what felt uncomfortable, what you'd like to do better next time, and what you need to practice or study in order to do so. Of course, instructor debriefings are pretty standard in flight training. Most will tell you what you screwed up, either on the spot or after the flight. Smart instructors invite their students to lead the debriefings themselves. Errors happen in the mind before they ever manifest themselves physically, and the prevention of their reoccurrence must also happen in the mind.
So, whether an instructor is present or not, debrief yourself after every flight. Be tough but fair, accepting that you're human. Learn from your mistakes, and don't beat yourself up too badly over them. Over time, this will become second nature, and you'll seldom recognize that you're doing it, except when you really screw up and have to commit your debrief narrative to an ASAP or NASA report.
I hope you don't feel that any of this advice is meant to detract from your enjoyment of your training or your early time building. After 22 years and 14,000 hours of commercial flying and everything from light singles to wide-body jets, I still really enjoy the freedom and spontaneity of general aviation, which is why I still go out to the airport to fly light planes and gliders on my days off. But whether I'm flying a Piper or a Boeing, I try to bring a professional approach to every single flight, and I find that doing so actually increases my enjoyment rather than detracting from it. I certainly hope that you'll feel the same. Thanks for watching, and for more great content for new and aspiring professional pilots, check out V1 Rotate here at flyingmag.com every first and third Friday of the month.